Red one. Let's go to the beach, each, let's go get a wave. They say what they gonna say. Have a drink, clean.
Hi, my name is Jaylan Tampos and I am a 4th-year student at Britech Interface College. I prepare a video that tackles about common cybersecurity threats and network security. So in this video, I prepare for you to help you deeply understand about the security and cyber threats, the different threats, histories, and the possible solution of those threats. So at the end of the video, I will give you what are those moral lesson that we can get. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the video while learning. Here we go.
Greetings, Canada. We are anonymous.
Their message is blunt and unapologetic.
We are a force to be reckoned with. Anonymous has a goal that needs to be achieved. Nothing will stop us from achieving that certain goal. We will go after anyone that we feel needs to be taught a lesson.
And they mean it. This is Anonymous, a secretive, leaderless hacker collective. Anonymous represents a new kind of hacker, the activist, dramatic, political, and very public, posting their videos on YouTube. But hacking existed long before Anonymous. The explosion of the internet brought the explosion of hacking and hacker culture, with its own rules, hierarchy, and code. And there are different kinds of hacking. Some are criminal, others political, and some actually hacking for good.
The line is a really tough one to draw, but you know, hacking is anyone.
There's good hackers, there's bad hackers, there's hackers who do what they do in order to find out vulnerabilities and weaknesses in applications and computer systems in order for us to be better protected. And then there's bad hackers who use it for, making a name for themselves or just making money.
Regardless of motivation, all hacking relies on a powerful set of skills that both build and dismantle, a game of cat and mouse where the stakes have never been higher and the rules are tested, yet still undefined.
There is this battle between good and evil going on.
This is a $1 billion plus industry in North America alone in terms of cyber crimes.
You don't really need to know anything about hacking to be highly successful.
Welcome to the Group 12 IT in the News Project. If you haven't guessed it by now, our presentation to you will be about the ever-increasing threat of cybersecurity and how it impacts today's business environment. Our presentation to you will cover the history of cybersecurity, mainstream threats for 2013, and our recommended solutions. The history of cybersecurity can be traced back to as early as 1945 when Rear Admiral Grace Murray Hopper discovered a moth trapped between relays in a Navy computer. She referred to it as a bug, which was a term used since the late 19th century to refer to problems with electrical devices. In 1963, programmers developed the American Standard Code for Information Interchange, or US ASCII, which was a simple computer language that allowed machines produced by different manufacturers to exchange data. In 1969, ARPANET was launched by the Advanced Research Projects Agency. ARPANET was an early network used by government research groups and universities and the forerunner to the Internet. The early 1970s see a growing trend in the popular subculture of phone freaks, or phreakers, who use blue boxes as tone generators to make free phone calls. Popular phone phreakers include Steve Wozniak of Apple, who built his own blue box which he sold to fellow UC Berkeley students. With the use of a blue box, phone phreakers could unlock AT&T's phone network to make prank calls or have access to free telephone services. In 1979, engineers at Xerox Palo Alto Research Center discovered the computer worm. A worm is a short program that scours a network for idle processors. It was originally designed to provide more efficient computer use. It is the ancestor of the modern worm, which is a destructive computer virus that alters or erases data on computers. In 1983, the term computer virus is coined by Fred Cohen to describe a computer program that can affect other computer programs by modifying them in such a way as to include a possibly evolved copy of itself. Then, in 1984, the term cyberspace is popularized by author William Gibson, who used the word to describe the network of computers through which the characters in his futuristic novels travel. The first computer virus is released in 1986. Known as the Brain, the virus is released by programmers in Pakistan. The next major cyber attack occurs in 1988. Robert Morris unleashes a worm that invades ARPANET computers and disables roughly 6,000 computers on the network by flooding their memory banks with copies of itself. Morris is fined $10,000 and sentenced to 3 years probation. Finally, in 1991, Norton antivirus software is released by Symantec. This marks the release of one of the first antivirus softwares available. From the 1990s on, cyber attacks have been increasing, with famous attacks including the Solar Sunrise, the Melissa virus, the string of DDoS attacks, the Code Red worm, and the Nimba virus. The list of cyber attacks continues with more and more computers targeted with each attack. In addition to the growth in the number of attacks and the number of infected systems, the sophistication of the attacks continues to increase. As we can see from historical trends, cyber threats are becoming more frequent, more dangerous, and more specialized. There are 3 focal points in the world of cybersecurity and potential threats as we look forward to 2013. First, the widespread use of multiple new platforms creates new points of attacks for hackers. Second, as exploit kits become more powerful and prevalent while at the same time enabling use by less technically proficient users, attacks are going to increase. Third, we can see from historical trends that attacks are growing in sophistication, often targeting specific organizations or governments. This trend is unlikely to revert, so users and IT managers will need to remain current on trends in cybersecurity assaults. Mobile usage is increasing exponentially, especially as users gain access to smartphones and tablets. In fact, in Australia and the United States, an Android device is more likely to experience a malware attack, whether failed or successful, than a PC over a month-long period. Employers looking to curb costs as the price of new devices continues to rise are turning to Bring Your Own Device, or BYOD policies. Enabling users to access company or government information from personal devices opens up another frontier for cyber attack. Additionally, mobile devices offer unique points of attack due to the microphone and camera hardware inclusions. In addition to data actually stored on or accessed from the device, attackers may be able to use the phone as a surveillance tool to gather more information. Often, cyber exploits take the form of executable files in the PC environment. On mobile devices that allow the usage of apps, security can be more difficult to achieve. Apple's App Store is known for a very strict oversight that has managed to control release of malicious or rogue applications to most iPhone users. Android, now the most popular OS for mobile devices, is not as secure. Users have the ability to download apps from multiple sources and even directly install them on their own. This is a key concern for IT managers considering allowing usage of Android devices for work purposes. Eugene Kaspersky predicts that attacks on the Apple iOS platform will increase now that more software engineers are seeking training for the Mac environment. For example, in early 2012, nearly 500,000 Mac users were infected with the Flashback Trojan. The cloud, perhaps one of the biggest buzzwords of the last year or so, the cloud allows users to access information from almost anywhere. Attackers may choose to exploit this in a variety of ways, stealing or destroying key data, using denial-of-service attacks to prevent legitimate use, or even hijacking cloud traffic and redirecting it to other, potentially more dangerous, malicious content. These attacks can all cause significant disruption to businesses, so IT managers should carefully consider the decision to push forward with cloud computing, particularly in regards to security. Social media is a new platform that allows complete strangers to gain more access to information about others, making the fraud more credible. According to a recent study, as much as 15% of all Facebook users have never even looked at their privacy settings. Similar to older email exploits, social media allows access to an individual's entire social network rather than just their address book. Additionally, the speed of information shared on social networks and the type of information shared tends to make users more curious and susceptible to fraudulent activities, such as the posts that reference Did you see this embarrassing photo of user? And then redirects the user to malicious content. Additionally, sources like LinkedIn provide access to information about where users work and where they attended school, making credible conversations more possible, as attackers may pose as alumni or professional associations when attempting to gather information. Foursquare and other check-in functions on social networks provide geolocation tracking for even further exploit, possibly used in combination with other information gathered to access and control bank and financial records and transactions. Offering access to those bordering on the computer illiterate, exploit kits are the readily available equivalent of the For Dummies books series in the cyber assault world. Often found via underground or black market channels, exploit kits are essentially pre-written code that target applications with known security breaches and users who rarely update their software. Generally, the kits require no knowledge of how the exploit works, and users simply deploy them and then log into a landing page that allows access to features like which systems have been attacked, have been successfully exploited, and then enabling monetization of the exploit in several ways. Approximately 70% of all exploit kits currently originate from Russia. Lastly, cyber attacks are becoming increasingly sophisticated and often targeted at specific organizations, corporations, or governments. These attacks are gaining popularity because there is significant monetary value that can be associated with cyber attacks, and perhaps more concerning is the ability to capture headlines. Groups of cyber criminals or protesters are loosely claiming the title of hacktivists, targeting government and corporate networks to draw attention to their cause. 2011 and 2012 saw numerous attacks from groups such as Anonymous, introduced in the opening video, and subsequent arrests of hacktivists have taken place. But the reality is that they are likely here to stay into the foreseeable future. Nation-state sponsored attacks, or cyber warfare, has entered the public consciousness. One recent example is that of Stuxnet, a computer worm discovered in 2010, believed to have been created by the United States and Israel to attack Iran's nuclear facilities. One of the more dangerous threats that has come to rise of late is the Advanced Persistent Threat, or APT. APTs are very sophisticated and customized malware exploits that lie dormant for a period of time before wreaking havoc on unsuspecting users. These targeted attacks are significantly more difficult to defend. Whether it's for a hacktivist organization's cause or a state-sponsored assault, one thing is clear, which is that individuals and organizations need to protect themselves and stay current on the latest exploits, techniques, and trends in cybersecurity, as only relying on antivirus software and basic firewalls alone is likely going to be insufficient going forward. In response to these cybersecurity threats, businesses and individuals can implement solutions to increase security for their mobile devices, cloud computing, and personal information found on social media sites. In addition to that, we will discuss how the risk of exploit kits can be mitigated and the recent government involvement in cybersecurity. There are many solutions to protecting users against mobile cybersecurity threats. The first solution is the Equipment Identity Register, which is a nationwide database built and maintained by wireless companies. This database prevents smartphones reported as lost or stolen from being activated for voice and data services by thieves. Next, we have the password mobile device lock, which is available on almost all smartphones. New features like minimum password length and password complexity requirements have increased mobile security. Users can also remotely lock and remotely wipe their smartphone's data in the event that devices are lost or stolen, with applications like Find My iPhone for iPhones and Remote Lock for the Android phones. Mobile device management software secures, monitors, manages, and supports mobile devices. Companies that implement an MDM policy would require company mobile devices to access information by using a compliant password. This would allow the company to remotely wipe any devices that become compromised. A virtual private network, or VPN, extends a private network and the resources contained in the network across public networks like the Internet. A VPN provides security so that traffic sent through the VPN connection stays isolated from other devices on the public network. There are a variety of encryption options for data that resides on a mobile device. Encryption transforms information, rendering it unreadable to anyone except those possessing the correct login or key information. Likewise, encryption can also be used to protect data in transit as it moves from a mobile device to a mobile network. Next, depending on the operating system, anti-malware and antivirus software may be available to prevent, detect, and remove malware of all descriptions, including viruses, malware, adware, backdoors, Trojan horses, and worms. As companies expand their BYOD policies, they should also look into software solutions that provide a separate and secure virtual environment for BYOD mobile devices. Lastly, since a user's single password can be stolen or guessed, users can use two-factor authentication, which can include a digital identifier or time-based random number, in addition to a password. Examples of these two-factor authentications can be found through text messages of random number identifiers commonly used in many mobile banking apps. Companies and organizations looking to migrate to the cloud should ensure that the company they choose has been certified and has successfully passed third-party audits. One such important certification is ISO 27001, which requires that management actively manage information security controls on an ongoing basis as the nature of cybersecurity threats change. Next, it is imperative that the cloud's host has the latest security initiatives in place to protect its infrastructure, to include the facilities, network, and hardware, as well as the operating system. This can be done through employing a variety of the latest IT security standards. To ensure your cloud's host is resilient to hardware failures or cyber attacks, a business continuity management system and plan is important. Such a plan should include an automated process which would move customer data traffic away from servers or data centers that have been compromised. Lastly, network security at cloud services is of the utmost importance. A cloud host's secure network architecture should consist of network devices, including firewall and other boundary devices, that monitor and control communications across the entire network and at key access points. Securing a cloud service's access points allow users to establish secure communication. Cloud hosting can provide transmission protection by connecting to the cloud's access points through a secure sockets layer, or SSL, which is a cryptographic protocol that is designed to protect against eavesdropping, tampering, and message forgery. Here are some tips to help protect yourself from cyber attacks via social media. Protect your passwords by not using the same password for more than one site, and choose one that means something to you only. In particular, don't use your online password for any other site, and be sure to change your passwords frequently. Secure your answers by keeping personal information about yourself private, including family members, school, telephone numbers, exact birth date, and address. And never confirm or update personal information requested via email. This threat is called phishing. Strengthen your settings by setting up privacy restrictions on all social media sites, and reconsider geolocation apps that reveal your physical location. Be less friendly by being skeptical of strange people, posts, pages, and information. Never open emails from strangers, and never click on links or open attachments for unfamiliar sites. It is important to note that 1 in 5 Americans have been the victim of a cybercrime, yet only 15% of all Americans have ever checked to see what their social networking, privacy, and security settings are. When it comes to combating the threat of exploit kits, the first step is to mitigate the risk. This should be a two-pronged approach, starting with assessing your vulnerabilities and performing penetration tests. Penetration tests can help businesses understand weak points by intentionally hacking their own systems before a bad guy does. The second step is to plug the identified holes in your system. This could be as simple as ensuring that all software updates have been deployed on all devices connected to the company's network, ensuring that employees are using a secure browser, and using auto-update features for all computer programs. One way of helping to prevent exploit kits from stealing information is to use techniques like code signing and digital signatures. Code signing allows businesses to protect their users' data from software that has been tampered with by malware. Lastly, security cannot be treated as a set-it-and-forget-it function. All security processes need to be evaluated on a continual basis to ensure your organization is not just protected from the risks of today, but also the threats of tomorrow. With the rising threat of cybercrimes, the United States government has also become involved. In February of this year, President Obama released an executive order designed to strengthen the cybersecurity of American businesses by increasing information sharing between companies. First, the executive order allows U.S. companies to share threat and attack information with each other. This enables companies to learn what is happening to other organizations so that they can better protect themselves from similar threats. Additionally, the order calls for the development of a cybersecurity framework by the National Institute of Standards and Technology. This will help reduce cyber risks and prevent attacks by ensuring that a common core of standards is being used across the board. To do this, NIST will work to identify the current consensus standards and incorporate industry best practices into the cybersecurity framework. On behalf of Group 12, I would like to thank you for listening to our presentation. If you have any questions, please leave them on the discussion board page for us to answer. Now, for your viewing pleasure, stay tuned after the references for a top 10 list of computer hackers. Watching this video is optional, of course. Thank you again, and enjoy.
In their indictments, they say I left the networks open to further attack, but the networks were completely open to attack, and I never had to break into them. It was like logging on.
And there you have it. So we learned on the video about the history of the computer cybersecurity threats, different threats, and its solution. So the moral lesson that we can get through the video is that we can apply all the solutions in our daily life, those possible solutions, and how to prevent those threats. And we need to make sure that all our gadget, network, and system that we're using right now are secured, because a lot of anonymous hackers nowadays are trying to steal or to destroy your system, network, or gadget. So it's much better to prevent those threats by applying those possible solution that we can see on those video. So in the next video you can see about the different threats of the computer security. Here we go, and hope you enjoy. So our next video will distinguish between cyber threats like spyware, keyloggers, phishing, identity thief, social engineering, hacking, internet-related fraud scams, hoaxes, and DOS or DOS attacks. So watch it. Here you go.
Cyberbullying, cyber stalking, cyber fraud, cyber scams, cyber hoaxes, and cyber terrorism. All of these are what we call internet-related threats, and it's likely that as a user, you will come under attack at some point. The internet is generally an open and anonymous environment, which makes it a paradise for predators, criminals, and dishonest people. There are many ways to take advantage of unsuspecting and gullible users. In this lesson, we're going to look at some of these ways and show you how to avoid getting caught out. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to distinguish between cyber threats like spyware, keyloggers, phishing, identity theft, social engineering, hacking, internet-related fraud scams, hoaxes, and DOS attacks. Describe the purpose of safeguards like backup, firewalls, passwords, user access rights and privileges, digital signatures, digital certificates, encryption, SSL, and public key encryption. So, are you ready to peer into the darker side of information and computer technology? Right, let's have a look at some of the ways that bad guys will try to sneak up on you. A common way that hackers and fraudsters get access to your computer files is by offering you free stuff that seems harmless, but actually is. This is called a Trojan. Although it will seem like you're downloading something you might want, it's actually installing a completely different program onto your computer without your permission. One type of malware that enters as a Trojan is spyware. Spyware records or spies on things like the specifications of your computer or the websites you visit and sends this information back to the spyware creator. Luckily, spyware can usually be detected and removed with anti-spyware software. Keyloggers are a more sophisticated kind of software that record the keys you press on your keyboard or the mouse clicks you make, and even may capture screenshots of your computer. You can also get hardware keyloggers. These devices work the same way as the software versions, but the person using the device has to have physical access to your computer to plug it in and retrieve information from it. Hardware keyloggers are plugged into a USB or keyboard port on your computer, and then the USB or keyboard is plugged into the computer. These devices either store the information they have recorded on a flash disk or use Wi-Fi to connect to the internet and send the information to a specified email address. There are a few easy things you can do to protect yourself from this type of spying. First, you need to make sure that you have an up-to-date antivirus and anti-spyware software installed on your computer. Second, don't allow people you don't trust to use your computer or install software on it. And lastly, don't use public computers for your internet banking or online shopping. You have no way of knowing if keyloggers have been installed there. Bandwidth theft and information theft are also fairly easy for those who have the know-how. Bandwidth thieves take advantage of wireless networks without passwords to access the internet and download files. Information thieves who have physical access to your computer can simply download the information they want onto a memory stick, an iPod, a flash drive, or portable hard disk. Another way of physically gaining access to your computer files is hardware theft. Computers are generally stolen for their resale value, but sometimes people do this to get the information on your hard drive. If information thieves can't get physical access to your computer, they might try hacking into it. Hacking is the process of accessing other computer systems without authorization, or to access, steal, or tamper with data and information on systems, or to send out spam. Hackers are usually very hard to trace or catch. because they set up a long chain of computers between their own IP address and their target. Some companies, like banks and software companies, employ professional hackers to help improve the security of their own systems. We asked a professional hacker to tell us a bit more about this.
Essentially, hacking is a term or coined phrase that is not actually defined as to exactly where it came from, but it has a rather nice ring to it because it almost sounds naughty. Now, and having said that, I can tell you that hacking comes from different origins in that it emanated or originated from people who were trying to, believe it or not, sell their software so they would actually hack into systems and then sell the countermeasure. Now, what is a countermeasure? When someone gets into the world of hacking, they try to get into a system or into someone else's space, if you like, and then they take data or information. And it's very clearly different. Data is just numbers or words or information which cannot be translated and used to make a decision, whereas information is actually processed data. And taking advantage of such, they could literally, if you hear about banks or huge corporations, bring them down. The other reason someone would try to hack is just for fun. And generally, one thing to remember about hackers is they're also network specialists, in that they will try to get into a system or your system without actually getting permission and from a remote place. So someone could sit in Durban, for example, and hack into a system in Johannesburg, and you wouldn't be any the wiser. There is something that the general public or the young guns could actually go in and search for after their lesson, and it is something called CEH. It is hosted by the EC Council, and CEH is a certified ethical hacker. Yes, it actually exists. You can be certified as an ethical hacker. So you're actually the bad guy or the bad girl, but you're learning how they work so that you can counter it or find a way to neutralize your opponent in this case, because you'll find that when banks fall into the trap of getting hacked into, very often they don't have a security team, or what we call a tiger team, which is quite a neat little precept of how to get the data back and also block them. Because generally you get something called a denial of service attack, or a DOS. And what happens is your entire system starts to shut down. It's almost like when a person gets sick. They get a viral infection, which is what this is. It's basically a viral attack or a virus. And your entire system starts shutting down because they don't know what's going on, you know, in the general public's case. So, you know, if they go into that or they Google, as we do nowadays, on the internet, CEH, or Certified Ethical Hacker, they would even get a breakdown of what hacking involves. And it is not necessarily security, though it could be network related. But you know what? A hacker can be somebody as simple as who's in your office, who walks to your machine, and when you're not there, or you're on a coffee break, or you've gone out for lunch, tries to access your data. They don't have to be in another town, another city, another country. They're sitting right there where you were 10 minutes ago, and they're trying to get in. That's a hacker. So if you're going to do the right thing is to have ethics and social responsibility, but know what it is that they're up to. And they're up to no good, in short.
Another type of cyber threat is called social engineering. Social engineering is a term used to describe attempts to con people into giving out confidential information. This will compromise the security of data or give access to a network. One example of this is someone posing as a technician, pretending to be there to install new software or to fix a problem. Once he has access to your computer, he steals information or installs other programs like keyloggers or spyware onto your PC. Sometimes a social engineer will call you pretending to be from the IT department or help desk and ask for your password to test if the system is working. To avoid this type of attack, Always ask for identification from technicians you don't know, and never give out your passwords. One possible reason for these types of attacks is what is called identity theft. This crime is when someone gets the personal information of another person to assume another person's identity. In this way, the fraudster can gain access to the person's finances or frame a person for a crime. One way that fraudsters do this is by what is called phishing. Phishing is a form of internet fraud where an email is used to try to get you to click onto a link or a website that looks official, like your bank's website, for instance. But it isn't the real thing. You can usually spot a phishing email by the general greeting and the request to click on a link to a website. If I were to click on this link, it would take me to the fake official website. When on the site, you would have to log in using your username or account number and PIN. Once you've done this, the fraudsters will intercept your details and they will have everything they need to transfer money out of your real bank accounts. If you receive an email like this, ignore it. No real bank or business would send you an email like this. If you want to go to your internet banking site, always start your web browser and type in the real address. Never use a link to navigate there. Email is also used to trick you in other ways. A hoax is a deliberate attempt to dupe, deceive, or trick an audience into believing or accepting that something is real when in fact it is not. Often the sender just wants to get an emotional reaction from you or waste your time for their own amusement. An example of this would be an email message warning recipients about a new and terribly destructive virus that doesn't really exist. Another could be a plea for a sick child, saying that if you forward the email, 10 cents will be donated to help save the child. Sometimes, though, you might receive a hoax email which is part of a scam. For instance, this one tells me that I have won the lottery and must forward money to lawyers that will make sure that I get my prize money. If you're unsure if an email is a hoax or not, type a phrase from the email into a search engine and see what results are returned. Or you could go to a website like this one to check what hoax emails are going around the internet. Here's another type of cyber threat. A denial of service or DOS attack is generally designed to deny access to a specific site or network, either temporarily or permanently. A DOS attack sends real-looking but unnecessary messages to a victim's computer. As a result, network bandwidth is wasted, disk space is filled with unnecessary data, or processing power is spent for useless purposes. This prevents the legitimate user from accessing system resources by shutting down or seriously slowing down a service provided by a computer system. So you can see that there are many reasons why you might be the target of a cyber threat and you need to protect yourself. There are several ways that you can do this. One of the best things you can do is to install antivirus software and make sure that it is kept up to date. An antivirus is protective software designed to defend your computer against malicious software. There are many types of antivirus software, and in some cases, you can get them free off the internet. To be effective, your antivirus software needs to run in the background all the time, and because new malware is constantly being developed, it is important to update your antivirus regularly so it recognizes new versions of malicious software. Secondly, back up your computer files regularly. To back up means to copy files to another computer, tape, drive, or server for safe storage. It protects you in case your computer is stolen or destroyed or the hard drive crashes. You can schedule backups so that they are made daily. You can also keep copies of your files in cloud servers. Using a firewall is also a good way to protect your computer from threats. A firewall is either hardware or software, sometimes both. It is designed to prevent unauthorized users or software from accessing a network. Each packet sent over the internet contains not only the IP address of the computer it must reach, but a port number to tell the computer which program must handle the packet. Your computer has ports from 0 to 65,535. For a simple workstation with no service running, the firewall will block every port against incoming traffic. A firewall also stops a program on the computer from trying to send unauthorized data from that computer. Always use strong passwords because they are harder to crack. A strong password is at least 7 characters long. It doesn't contain a complete dictionary word, your username, real name, or company name. It should also be very different from passwords you've used in the past and contain characters from uppercase letters, lowercase letters, numerals, and symbols found on the keyboard. In some cases, you might have to write passwords down. If this is the case, make sure they are kept in a safe place and destroy them when they are no longer needed. Never share passwords with anyone, and change passwords immediately if they may have been seen by someone else. Also, be careful about where passwords are saved on computers. Some dialog boxes present an option to save or remember a password. Selecting this option is a potential security threat. If you are sending data to someone else, you can protect the integrity of your data by using a digital signature. A digital signature is digital code that can be attached to an electronically transmitted message to uniquely identify the sender and guarantee that the sender is who he or she claims to be. This signature is electronic and cannot be forged. Since part of this algorithm used to form the signature is based on the contents of the data, it can also verify that the data has not been altered in any way since it was signed. You can get a digital signature from a third party like Microsoft. It is easily accessed in Microsoft Office applications. When you are surfing the net, you can check the integrity of the data on a website by looking for a digital certificate. Digital certificates are issued by a trusted third party called a certificate authority. Examples are VeriSign and Thought. The certificate includes the name of the company, a serial number, expiration dates, IP address, a copy of the certificate holder's public key that is used for encrypting messages and digital signatures, and the digital signature of the certificate issuing authority so that a recipient can verify that the certificate is real. If you want to ensure your privacy or protect important data from unauthorized access, you could use data encryption. Encryption is simply a way of scrambling text or data into a new format using a specified set of rules, making it impossible for other people to understand. You probably wouldn't need to encrypt all the data on your computer, but you might want to encrypt your personal notes or diary entries to prevent other people from reading them. A teacher could decide to encrypt all the files in her exams folder so that if a learner gained access to her computer, the files would be useless. If you wanted to send an encrypted message to someone else, you could use public key encryption. An example of this is a secure sockets layer, also referred to as SSL. This type of public key is only used when it's really necessary. Because it's processor and bandwidth intensive, most websites, like bank sites for instance, use HTTP rather than SSL for this reason. You can check if a web page is secure by looking for a lock symbol somewhere on the browser and checking if the address starts with HTTPS. With public key encryption, the message has 2 keys or passwords. One key is used to encrypt the message, and another completely different key is used to decrypt it. You can give anyone this public key because all they can use it for is to create an encrypted message. In order to decode the message, they would need the second, private key that is matched to it. This way, anyone can send you coded messages with your public key, but only you can decode it because only you have the private key. Administrators of computer networks will create usernames and allow users access rights and privileges in order to protect data on the network from unauthorized access. The network is protected since only users with a user account and password can access it. Each built-in account has a different combination of rights and permissions. The administrator account has the most extensive rights and permissions over the domain, while the guest account has limited rights and permissions. On NTFS volumes, you can set security permissions on files and folders. These permissions grant or deny access to the files and folders. That brings us to the end of this lesson. Here is a task to help cement what you have learnt in this lesson. Draw up a table like this and fill in the missing information. For each method of protection, say why we use this method and how we use this method.
So in the video we can see more tips about how to prevent those threats, and we learn different common threats like viruses, hackers, identity thief, and all those threats that are mentioned. And the moral lesson of this video is that you need to install antivirus of your computer so that and keep it updated so that your computer and your network will be secured through installing firewall, etc., or other antivirus software. And especially in the next video we will see on more how to prevent those viruses or those like identity thief or those threats that are commonly or we commonly encountered. So so this is the last video that I will present to you, so hopefully you will learn a lot on this video. Thank you so much for watching.
Computer viruses and hackers can do real harm to the information your small business depends on. Contacts, customer records, financial agreements, vendor data. They're all things you'd rather not lose, or even share. One new worm threatens to interrupt programmable logic controllers around the world, bringing factories everywhere to a halt. Another steals online banking usernames and passwords through cell phones. New security threats appear every 8 seconds. And malware, short for malicious software, has become so advanced, in most cases, you may not even know you are infected. Let's see how one company in the travel business approached security threats and unwanted activities. Mick Miller runs a small travel agency downtown. One morning, he arrived at the office to find all his desktops playing the Czech Republic national anthem, and he had never even been there. A virus had infected the entire office. Several directories had been violated, and many files were missing or corrupted, so he immediately took action. While there were some measures Mick knew he could implement on his own, he also called in internet specialists from Battleton Security to make sure he covered all of his vulnerabilities. Battleton recommended a complete security audit. What they found astounded Mick. As it turns out, the huge volume of unsolicited emails the agency received was a lot more than an inconvenience. It hid malware, including viruses, worms, and hidden spyware called Trojan horses that had crept into the network and compromised information everywhere. Accounting information, business plans, customer databases, vendor information were all at risk of theft or corruption. And protecting it took more than just passwords. Dependable security requires multiple layers of protection, updated constantly. To start with, Battleton advised a change in behavior with Miller's staff. Rather than freely browsing any website, they were encouraged to avoid sites that generated a missing certificate warning. Battleton installed spam filters that protect against spam, virus, spoofing, phishing, and spyware attacks. Then, Battleton recommended third-party antivirus software for scanning every single downloaded file that got through. Automated, mass-produced internet threats were one thing, but intentional hacking can be even more damaging, because that is even harder to locate. For instance, Miller didn't know it yet, but for months his server had been secretly recruited as a botnet. It was now one of millions of servers unknowingly generating secret email solicitations for hire to recipients around the world. This not only annoyed thousands of email recipients, but caused occasional preventative blocking of messages to and from Miller's own service provider. Not knowing if their own outgoing messages were getting through meant initiating delivery confirmation on every message sent. and he had no way of knowing how many incoming messages were being blocked. This threw the business into chaos and added extra work for Miller's employees. And there had been other forms of infiltration by unauthorized users as well, such as credit card number and contact information thefts. To fight those threats, Battleton implemented a layered solution that addressed manual intrusions on many levels. The first step in network device protection against hacking was to install network and email firewalls. Email firewalls protect the email system, and network firewalls protect the entire installed network. After Battleton installed the firewall that came with Miller's internet service, visitors to the network needed password and previous approval from the system administrator. This protected information as well as vulnerable hardware, data storage devices, and laptops. But what about files in transit coming and going through the firewall? Information being sent faces its own set of threats. Since Miller's staff sent lots of emails over the internet from around the world, the threats were too numerous to count. The internet is, after all, a public network. So Battleton set up a virtual private network, or VPN, which is a network which only approved users recognized by Miller could access. No one who was excluded from the network could violate the information being sent over it. To further prevent hackers from accessing sensitive documents, Battleton recommended encryption of all documents and files. Encryption scrambles all the information until a passcode is provided for user access. And this protection can apply to information where it is stored, as well as while it is in transit. Once Miller made all these investments in protecting information, how did he know it was working? One of the benefits Miller got from his relationship with Battleton was a monthly report that tallied the number of viruses intercepted and eliminated, as well as intentional, manual intrusion attempts. So, not only did business go on uninterrupted, Miller had proof his investment in security was paying dividends. Although Miller hired Battleton for security measures, he could save a little money by implementing security on his own. Or there was another alternative Miller could consider. With remote hosting by a third party, all the security measures could be implemented and updated by full-time professionals. The extra layer of redundancy assures files are safe. He would pay for the service, but it was one less thing to worry about.
For more detailed resources, like brochures and white papers, go to CenturyLink.com/SMB-resources.
오빤 강남스타일 강남스타일
Welcome to PC Hits Kids Tech Talk.
낮에는 따사로운 인간적인 여자 커피 한 잔에 여유를 아는 품격 있는 여자 밤이 오면 심장이 뜨거워지는 여자 그런 반전 있는 여자 너는 선호해 낮에는 너만큼 따사로운 그런 선호해 커피 식기도 전에 원샷 때리는 선호해 밤이 오면 심장이 터져버리는 선호해 그런 선호해
That could be malware to spyware and viruses which run the MS2 in there there's a startup. This is a whole bunch of items there. Computer, right? So that's how I find things that are useless sometimes that are running whenever you log into Windows and you don't want it there anymore. And you see, oh yeah, I know what that is. I don't need that program anymore to start out. Maybe you think of something suspicious. You need to find out where it's located in the registry as well. You can go back and delete the references to that file and delete all the computer. So this is the first place that we go in and start doing it. The second place is the
성숙해 보이지만 놀 땐 노는 여자 이때다 싶으면 묻었던 머리 푸는 여자 가렸지만 웬만한 노출보다 야한 여자 그런 감각적인 여자 나는 선호해 점잖아 보이지만 놀 땐 노는 선호해 내가 되면 완전 미쳐버리는 선호해 근육보다 사상이 올통벌통한 선호해 그런 선호해
that you know is suspicious, that doesn't have name associated with it, or suspicious, like I said, and I'm pretty familiar with what you're doing because I go in and check sometimes you can tell that there's no description, right? Or you can tell that the file name is kind of funny, right? And it doesn't make sense. Now the other thing is, what I'm doing is go into the registry itself and delete whatever that file that is starting up every single time with reference, delete that from the registry. And one of the places you can go to see if it's in there already is in the instructor user. And under that, expand that and go software, and then expand that and then go under Microsoft, and then under that, expand that and go to Windows, and then expand that and go to I already deleted everything under my run. It's empty. There's nothing there, right? So I don't have anything there specified in the registry. You can always do a search and find that exe or DLL or whatever it is that is referenced in the registry, and after it finds it, then delete it, right? So that way it doesn't look for it next time when you restart. Then the next thing, of course, is to find the actual files on your computer. So go into Windows Explorer and go into the directories where those files are and delete them, right? Or copy them somewhere else where they cannot be found, right? Or accessed. So one of the places that I usually go to is the Windows System 32 folder. So let's just say you had a problem that started yesterday, and it could be a Trojan, it could be something that you installed, and if you go into System 32 folder, sometimes you'll be able to sort everything by date and see, okay, which DLLs or exe files are running and have yesterday's date when I first installed that program or did this, and it's coincidental that I have here this file now running at the exact same time when the problem happened. So usually I go through a lot of problem determination to figure out what is related and what could be safely removed. So it's not easy necessarily to figure these things out. That's why we got antivirus programs and all these other tools to try to figure these things out for us, right? And look for these associations and remove them for us. But what I'm showing you right now is basically doing what an antivirus program does, right? Manually going through all of these things and removing them, right? Completely. But sometimes it doesn't get everything. One place that I know a lot of Trojans and spyware hides is in the C:\documents and settings, administrator / local settings / temp. In that temp folder, here's the temp folder. Everything in there you can blow it away, right? Just delete it all, right? It's just temporary files. But Trojans and exe files, for example, will hide in there, right? And they'll be accessed whenever they need to, right? And there's another folder, Windows /prefetch. Things hide in there as well, right? So there's lots of different places to go and look for to delete these files, basically. Once you've done that and removed every reference from the registry, from the msconfig, from your Windows Explorer, then you basically covered all the bases. Next time you restart your computer, the problem should be solved. So anyways, those are some suggestions on how you would do it manually if you had to, right? So I hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you for watching.
오빤 강남스타일 강남스타일 낮에는 따사로운 인간적인 여자 커피 한 잔에 여유를 아는 품격 있는 여자 밤이 오면 심장이 뜨거워지는 여자 그런 반전 있는 여자 나는 선호해 낮에